If one night you drive through Prenn Pass, right when the fog is so thick, your headlights can only cut a few feet ahead of the hood, and you see a woman in white standing at the edge of the road, do not honk at her. Do not curse under your breath. And whatever you do not look back a second time. For decades, drivers have claimed they saw her standing in the fog with long wet hair, a soaked white dress, one hand hanging at her side, and the other hand lifted as if she were trying to stop a car. Some say she is still there when they pass her, but the moment they look into the rearview mirror, she is gone.
The older drivers around the lot tell a darker version of the story.
If you see her once, it is a warning. If you see her twice, you still have a chance to turn back. But if you see her for the third time, your car is no longer traveling on the road meant for the living. Prenn Pass is a famous mountain road at the southern gateway into Dalat City, in Lam Dong Province, Vietnam. The pass is about 11 kilometers long, connecting National Highway 20 with the center of Dalat. It curves along the mountain slopes and cuts through deep green pine forest. During the day, Prenn Pass is one of the most scenic roads leading into the City of Flowers. But at night, especially when fog rolls down over the asphalt, the road becomes something colder, quieter, and far less forgiving. Since the 1980s, many drivers have passed around stories of a woman in white standing by the roadside in heavy fog. Some say that when they turn back to look, the woman disappears. Prenn Pass has also been known for serious traffic accidents caused by winding terrain, limited visibility, slippery pavement, and dense mountain fog. Out of those accidents, a local legend grew. People began to say the spirits of those who died on the pass still wander among the bends. And on the coldest nights, they appear from the fog, not to frighten the living, but to call someone to follow them.
Lam had been driving the Duc Trong to Dalat route for almost 10 years. His silver 7-seat car was no longer new, but the engine still ran smoothly. The headlights were still strong, and the air conditioner was cold enough for tourists stepping out of Lien Quang Airport and wanting to reach Dalat before morning. Lam was not the kind of man who believed in ghosts. He had been born in Lam Dong and raised with the sound of rain on sheet metal roofs, the smell of red soil after wet afternoons, and the strange stories old drivers told each other over late-night coffee. To him, ghosts were only what people invented when they had no better explanation for darkness. A slippery pass caused accidents. Fog made drivers blind. Tired men fell asleep behind the wheel. That was all. He had said that line many times. Until the night of November 17th. The night he accepted what he thought would be his last ride. Or at least, that was what he believed. That evening, Dalat had been under a thin rain since late afternoon. It was not a storm. It was the kind of misty rain that falls like dust, coating the windshield and stretching every streetlight into a pale yellow blur. At almost 11 at night, Lam parked outside a small noodle shop in Duc Trong. He had just finished a bowl of rare beef pho and was about to head back to his rented room when his phone vibrated. It was an unknown number. Lam stared at the screen for a moment, then answered. "Are you still driving up to Dalat tonight?" It was a woman. Her voice was low, rough, and thin, like she had been crying before she called. Lam glanced out at the wet road. "At this hour?" "Yes. I need to get to Dalat now." "How many passengers?" "3. Where should I pick you up?" There was a pause on the line. Then the woman said, "At the foot of Prenn Pass." Lamb frowned. "You are already at the foot of the pass and you want to go up to Dalat?" "Yes. Why not catch a car there? Nobody stops." That answer made Lamb uneasy. But in his job, strange did not always mean frightening. Some passengers were drunk. Some had fought with family. Some had been abandoned by a tour group. Some simply did not want to explain why they were standing in the rain at midnight. Lamb gave her the price. The woman agreed immediately, without bargaining. Before she hung up, she added one more sentence. "Do not take another road. Just go straight through Prenn Pass." Lamb laughed under his breath. "From there to Dalat, Prenn is the road. Where else would I go?" But the woman did not laugh. She only said, "A lot of people will not go through it tonight." Then she ended the call. At 11:37, Lamb drove out of town. The rain had softened, but fog had begun to crawl down from the pine hills on both sides of the road. When he was a few hundred meters from the foot of the pass, he saw 3 people standing beneath the closed awning of a roadside building. An old man, a young woman, and a boy of about 10. The old man wore a brown coat and an old knit cap. He was thin, slightly hunched, and he held a faded cloth bag in one hand. The young woman wore a white dress that reached her knees, with a clear raincoat over it. Her hair was tied low, and her face was lowered, so Lamb could not see her clearly. The boy stood close beside her, holding a paper cake box in both arms. "Break time equals 0. 45s/". Lamb lowered the window. "You called for a car?" The young woman lifted her head. In the headlights, her face looked almost colorless. Not pale from makeup. Pale from cold. "Yes," she said. It was the same voice from the phone. Lamb unlocked the doors. "Get in. It is freezing out there." The old man took the front passenger seat. The young woman and the boy sat in the back. As soon as the doors closed, Lamb noticed a strange smell. Damp cloth, wet earth, and the faint scent of burned incense. He glanced into the rearview mirror. The boy was still hugging the cake box, his eyes fixed on the window. The young woman sat perfectly still, both hands resting on her knees. The old man beside Lamb asked, "You are used to driving the pass at night?" Lamb smiled. "Every day. Sometimes 2 or 3 trips." "You are not afraid?" "Afraid of what, sir?" The old man turned and looked at him. His eyes were cloudy, but very awake. "Afraid of the person standing on the road." Lamb froze for one breath. Then he laughed. "So you have heard that story too?" "I have heard many stories." "The woman in white, right?" The old man did not answer at once. He ran one hand over the cloth bag on his lap. "Not a woman," he said softly. Lamb glanced at him. "Then who?" The old man whispered, "Someone who does not want anyone to keep going." The car entered the pass. Prenn Pass at night was nothing like Prenn Pass by day. In daylight, the road curled around pine forest, sunlight slipped through branches, and there were tourist cars, motorbikes, truck horns, laughter, and people stopping to take photographs. But after dark, all of that vanished. Only the wet black road remained, with white lane markings dragging forward through the headlights, and on both sides, pine trees stood like tall, thin figures watching from the fog. The mist thickened. Lamb slowed down. 40 kilometers an hour. 35. 30. The old man looked at the clock on the dashboard. 11:58, he said. Lamb asked, "Where should I drop you in the city?" "After we get through the pass," the old man said. That answer irritated Lamb. He preferred passengers who gave clear destinations. People who did not give clear destinations usually carried trouble with them. "And you?" Lamb asked, glancing at the young woman in the mirror. She kept her face lowered. "We are together." "Is the boy your son?" No one answered. Lamb felt awkward, so he said nothing more. Inside the car, the only sound was the steady sweep of the windshield wipers. Click. 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 After a few more minutes, the boy in the back suddenly spoke. "Uncle." Lamb looked into the mirror. "What is it?" "Do not pass the red bus." Lamb frowned. "What red bus?" The boy pointed ahead. There was no vehicle in the fog. Only the road bending slightly left. "You see a red bus?" The boy nodded. That bus already fell. A chill moved over Lamb's back. The young woman placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Do not say any more." The old man beside Lamb sighed. Children often see before adults do. Lamb switched to high beams. The fog threw the light back at him, making the road even wider and more blind. He cursed softly and lowered the beams again. "Fog is thick tonight," he muttered. The old man said, "When this pass does not want to let someone through, it does that." Lamb began to feel annoyed. "Please do not talk like that in the car. It is bad luck on a mountain road." The old man fell silent. After a while, he asked, "What is your name?" "Lamb." "Nguyen Hong Lamb?" Lamb's hands tightened on the wheel. "Do you know me?" The old man turned to look straight at him. "I knew your father." The air in the car seemed to grow colder. Lamb did not answer. He hated it when strangers mentioned his father. His father had also been a driver. He died when Lamb was 6 years old. A traffic accident on Prenn Pass. Lamb's mother never told him the details. She only said the car lost control in heavy fog. His father died at the scene. After that, every time Lamb drove through Prenn Pass, his mother told him the same thing. When the fog is heavy at night, do not force the road. Lamb never listened. He kept driving. Because the living needed money. And the dead were already dead. Brake time equals 0. 5s/. The car reached a wide curve. The cliff wall rose on the right. On the left, the guardrail disappeared into a black drop. A warning sign for a sharp bend glowed red through the fog. Suddenly, the boy in the back held his breath. The young woman lifted her head. The old man placed one hand on the dashboard. Lamb looked ahead. A figure stood at the edge of the road. White dress. Long hair. No umbrella. No raincoat. Perfectly still in the fog. Lamb touched the brake. The car rolled slower. The woman stood with her back to the headlights, her head slightly bowed, both arms hanging down. She was less than 20 meters away. Lamb tapped the horn. One short note sounded and dissolved into the mist. The woman did not move. Lamb muttered, "Are you crazy?" The old man said sharply, "Do not honk." Lamb looked at him. "You see her, right? There is someone in the road." The old man did not look forward. He looked at Lamb. "I see her. Then I should get out and check." "Do not get out." His voice was suddenly firm. "Stop the car. Turn off the engine." Lamb let out a bitter laugh. "Are you joking? We are in the middle of the pass. Why would I turn off the engine?" The boy in the back clutched the cake box tighter. "Uncle, she is going to turn around now." The moment the boy finished speaking, the woman in white slowly turned her head. Not her body. Only her head. Slowly. Stiffly. As if her neck had been broken backward. Every hair on Lamb's body rose. By reflex, he swerved right to avoid her. At that exact instant, an oncoming truck burst out of the fog. Its headlights were white and violent, tearing open the darkness. If Lamb had not moved, the truck would have hit him head-on. The truck blasted past, its air horn roaring. Lamb's car rocked hard. The right tires rode onto the road edge, and gravel cracked against the undercarriage. The young woman cried out. The boy sobbed. Lamb slammed the brake. The car stopped near the shoulder, less than half a meter from the drop. For several seconds, nobody spoke. All Lamb could hear was his heartbeat pounding inside his ears. He looked forward again. The woman in white was gone. Lamb swallowed. "Did you see that?" The old man nodded faintly. "I told you. Brake time equals 0. 35s/, she does not want anyone to keep going." Lamb looked into the rearview mirror. Behind the car, there was only fog. No woman. No white figure. But the moment he began to turn his head and look directly behind him, the young woman in the back said, "Do not look back." Lamb stopped. "What did you say?" She met his eyes in the mirror. For the first time, Lamb could see her clearly. Her eyes were very dark. And very sad. "You have seen her the first time." Lamb could no longer laugh. He pulled the hand brake and took several deep breaths. "Who are you people?" No one answered. He turned to the old man. "You know my father. You know what happened, don't you?" The old man took a crumpled pack of cigarettes from his coat, but did not light one. "I used to be your father's conductor." Lamb stared at him. "Are you telling the truth? Your father's name was Hong. He drove the Saigon to Dalat bus route. You were very young then." Lamb felt his throat tighten. His mother had forbidden him from asking about the accident. Every time he asked, she went silent. When he grew older, he heard pieces of the story from older drivers. One said his father drove too fast. One said the brakes failed. One said he swerved to avoid a white figure and went over the edge. No version was exactly the same. Only one detail stayed the same. That night, the fog was heavy, and a woman in white was standing at the curve. Lamb looked at the old man. "My father died because of her?" The old man was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "No. Your father died because he did not listen to her." Before Lamb could ask more, his phone lit up. There was no service, but the screen showed an incoming call. The caller name was Mom. Lamb went still. His mother had died 3 months earlier. Lung cancer. After the funeral, Lamb had put her phone into a drawer with his own hands. Yet now, on his screen, the word Mom blinked in the dark car. There was no ringtone. Only vibration. One pulse. Then another. Like someone tapping a finger against the glass. The young woman in the back said quietly, "Do not answer it here." Lamb looked at her in the mirror. Why? Because if you hear her voice while the car is still inside the pass, you will not want to leave. Lamb stared at the call. His finger trembled above the screen. Then the call ended. A message appeared immediately after it. Only 4 words. "Do not go on." Lamb dropped the phone as if it had burned him. The old man closed his eyes. "Too late," he whispered. Lamb turned toward him. "Too late for what?" The old man opened his eyes. "She will stand there the second time." Lamb decided to turn back. He no longer cared where the passengers wanted to go. He no longer cared about the fare. He no longer cared about the pride of being a driver who had laughed at ghost stories for years. He only wanted to get out of the pass. He shifted gears and turned the wheel. But when the car had only half turned, an air horn sounded behind them. Very close. Lamb jerked his eyes to the mirror. An old red bus was rushing at them from inside the fog. Its headlights were dull yellow. Its long body swayed. A diagonal crack split its windshield. Lamb shouted and hit the gas. The 7-seat car shot forward, barely avoiding the impact from behind. The red bus slid past the side of his car. But the near collision was not what froze Lamb's blood. What froze him was what he saw inside the bus as it passed. There was no driver. No passengers. Only empty seats. soaked with rainwater. And on the rear window, a small hand pressed against the glass. A child's hand. Lamb gasped for air. What was that? The boy in the back whispered through tears, "That bus already fell." The young woman held him close. "Do not look anymore." Lamb pushed the accelerator. The car climbed higher into the pass. The fog grew thicker. The headlights no longer lit the road. They only made a white wall in front of the hood. The old man pointed. "Keep right. Do not cross the center line. I know how to drive." "No. You do not know this part." Lamb clenched his jaw. "I have driven this road for 10 years. The old man said, "Not this version of the road." Before Lamb could understand, the car passed a roadside marker. In the headlights, he saw the faded letters. KM7. He had already passed Kilometer 7 a few minutes earlier. Why was it here again? Lamb checked the dashboard clock. 12:17. He remembered clearly. When he saw the woman in white the first time, it had also been 12:17. The clock had stopped. The second hand did not move. Even the digital display remained frozen. 12:17. The boy whispered, "We came back." Lamb's control began to crack. "That is impossible." He turned on the navigation screen. The map appeared. But the road on the map was no longer Prenn Pass. It was only a gray line stretching forward into nothing. No start. No end. No road name. Then the screen flickered. A message appeared. "You are too close to the accident point." Lamb shut the screen off at once. Cold sweat ran down his spine. A few minutes later, they saw a small roadside tea stall. Lamb knew there were stalls along the pass during the day, but at this hour, all of them should have been closed. This one was still lit. A yellow bulb hung beneath a tin roof. Inside sat an old woman. On the table were a teapot, an old radio, and several sticks of incense burning inside a glass cup. The old man said, "Stop here." Lamb did not want to stop. But the engine suddenly lost power. It coughed, trembled, and died. The car rolled slowly to the stall and stopped by itself. Lamb turned the key. Nothing. He tried again. Still nothing. The old woman at the stall looked up. Her eyes showed no surprise. As if she had been expecting them. The old man opened his door. The young woman took the boy by the hand and stepped out. Lamb sat still for several seconds, then finally got out too. The outside air was bitterly cold. Fog slipped through his jacket and touched his skin like wet fingers. The old woman poured 4 cups of tea. "Come in," she said. "The road is still long." Lamb asked at once, "Do you have a phone?" "My car died." The old woman looked at him. "Phones do not work here." "Then where is here?" Break time equals 0. For S/. She pushed a cup of tea toward him. Kilometer 7. Lamb turned and looked at the marker near the stall. It was Kilometer 7. But the marker looked older, covered in moss, as if it had been standing there for decades. The old man sat at the table. "You are still selling tea, Mrs. Sow?" Mrs. Sow smiled faintly. "Only to people who still owe something to this road." Lamb stared at him. "You know her?" The old man did not answer. Mrs. Sow placed the old radio in the middle of the table. "Listen." Lamb stepped back. "I do not want to listen to anything." Mrs. Sow looked at him. "Your father said the same thing." The sentence struck him like a slap. Lamb froze. Mrs. Sow turned the dial. Static hissed. Then a distorted male voice came through, tangled with wind and rain. "A bus has lost control near Prenn Pass. Heavy fog in the area. All vehicles are advised to reduce speed." Lamb knew this was not a current report. The sound was old. Distant. As if it had been recorded on a cassette tape. Then another voice broke through. A younger man's voice. "Urgent. There is someone standing in the road. Someone is signaling us to stop." A second voice shouted, "Do not look. Hong, do not look in the mirror." Lamb's whole body went cold. Hong. His father's name. The radio screamed with static. Then came the sound of brakes. Metal crashing. People screaming. And then silence. Lamb took a step back. "No." Mrs. Sow turned off the radio. "That was the last recording from your father's bus." Lamb looked at the old man. "Who are you?" The old man lowered his head. "My name is Tin. I was the conductor that night." Lamb felt the world tilt under him. "You survived?" Tin nodded. "I should not have." Lamb pointed at the young woman and the boy. "And them?" No one answered. The young woman looked down. The boy placed the cake box on the table. On top of the box, someone had written by hand, "Happy Birthday," and 1986. Lamb looked at the boy. "What is your name?" The boy pressed his lips together. "Nobody calls me anymore." Lamb turned to the young woman. "And you?" She was silent for a long time. Then she said, "You can call me in." Lamb looked at the cake box. "Happy birthday, An." But the boy was not An. So An was the young woman? If that was true, why did the box say 1986? The young woman looked only 22. Mrs. Sow said softly, "At Kilometer 7, the dead do not grow older." Lamb's legs almost gave way. He wanted to run. But behind the tea stall, there was only dark pine forest. In front of him, the road drowned in fog. And his car sat silent like a dead animal. Tin placed his hand on the table. "Lamb, listen to me. Tonight, you are not the one driving us." Lamb looked at him. "Then what is happening?" Tin said, "We are the ones trying to drive you out of the part of the road your father never escaped." In 1986, Lamb's father had been driving a passenger bus from Saigon to Dalat. There were more than 20 people on board. Among them was a young woman named Anne, who had just turned 22. She was wearing a white AO dye that night, because she was traveling to Dalat to begin work at a school. Her little brother was with her. He carried a birthday cake box, because Anne had promised him they would light the candles when they reached Dalat. That night, rain was heavy. The fog was thick. At Kilometer 7, just beyond a curve, a small truck had overturned across the road. Anne saw it first. She screamed a warning to the driver. Lamb's father hit the brakes. The bus skidded, but it did not fall. Many passengers were hurt. Anne was injured too, but she opened the door and ran out into the road. She stood in the fog wearing white, waving for the vehicles behind the bus to stop. One vehicle stopped. Then another. But the third came too fast. It rushed out of the fog behind them. Everyone heard a dry, terrible impact. When they ran to the road, Anne was gone. They found her below the slope the next morning. After that, drivers began saying they had seen a woman in white standing at Kilometer 7. Some said she made cars lose control. Some said she called the living to follow her. But Tin said the truth was different, and had not stood there to harm anyone. She had died trying to save strangers. And after death, she kept doing the same thing. Lamb listened until his throat closed. He looked at the woman in white across the table. "You are Anne?" She did not answer. The boy held the cake box tighter. Tin continued, "Your father did not die immediately that night." Lamb lifted his head sharply. "What?" "He survived 3 more days in the hospital. But before he died, he kept repeating one sentence." "What sentence?" Tin looked out into the fog. He said, "I looked into the mirror." Lamb shivered. Mrs. Sow poured more tea. "Some roads do not want people to look back," she said. "Because once they look, they see what is already sitting in their car." Lamb turned toward his 7-seat vehicle. Through the fogged glass, the back seats looked empty. But for one brief second, he saw many faces pressed against the windows. Old people. Children. Men. Break time equals 0. 35s/. Women. All of them soaking wet. All of them staring at him. He blinked. They disappeared. He turned back, his voice breaking. "What am I supposed to do?" Tin said, "Keep going." "Keep going? Are you insane? If you turn back, you will drive inside Kilometer 7 forever." I do not understand. Tin slowly stood. The night your father died, he did not only see him. He saw himself in the rearview mirror. Lamb's skin prickled. Himself? Yes. Another driver, his face covered in blood, sitting in the last row of the bus. He panicked. He turned to look. And the bus went over. Mrs. Sao added, "This past does not kill people. It keeps the moment when people make their worst mistake, and it makes them look at it again and again." Lamb remembered the last 10 years. How many times had he driven through the pass while sleepy? Break time equals 0. For S/. How many times had he answered his phone while turning through a bend? How many times had he passed slower cars in fog because he wanted to make one more trip? How many times had he believed he knew the road better than the road knew him? Tonight, if the white figure had not made him swerve, the truck would have struck him head-on. Lamb fell silent. Then he asked, "Why me?" No one answered right away. Mrs. Sao looked at him for a long time. Because someone who just died still has not let go. Lamb's phone on the table lit up again. It was another call from Mom. This time, there was no vibration. No ringtone. Only the pale light of the screen on the wet wooden table. Lamb stared at it. Tears rose before he could stop them. Since his mother's death, he had not cried. He had been too busy planning the funeral. Too busy greeting relatives. Too busy paying hospital debts. Too busy driving. Too busy pretending he was fine. He had never sat down long enough to admit that there was no one left in the world who would call him home for dinner. The woman in white said, "You may answer, but only after you are out of the pass." Lamb asked, "What happens if I answer now?" She looked at him. "You will stay with her." The car engine started again at 12:17. Still 12:17. Lamb did not understand how time worked there. But he stopped asking. Tin returned to the front passenger seat. And the boy sat in the back. Mrs. Sao stood before the stall, holding an incense stick that had almost burned out. Before the car moved, she said, "When you see her the second time, do not brake hard." Lamb asked, "Then what do I do?" "Slow down. Hold the wheel straight. And listen to her." "What will she say?" Mrs. Sao looked into the fog. Not with her mouth. The car left the stall. In the rearview mirror, the yellow light disappeared quickly, swallowed by the fog. Lamb forced himself not to look too long. The road began to climb. The pine trees on both sides appeared and vanished, as if sliding backward in an old film. And spoke softly from the back. "Lamb." He glanced at the mirror. "What?" "When you meet your mother, do not ask her to stay." Lamb went rigid. "You know my mother?" And did not answer directly. The living often think the dead are trying to pull them away. But sometimes the living are the ones who refuse to let go of the dead. Lamb said nothing more. He kept his eyes on the road. A curve appeared. The same curve as before. The same red warning sign. The same thick white fog. And the woman in white stood there again. The second time. But now she was not facing away. She stood at an angle, one hand near her chest, the other pointing down toward the road. Lamb slowed. 25. 20. 15. Tin said, "Look at the pavement." Lamb looked carefully. Brake time equals 0. 35s/. Just ahead of the car, under the shine of rainwater, a black streak of oil stretched across the curve. If he had entered the bend too fast, the tires would have slipped. Lamb held the wheel steady and let the car crawl across the oil. As he passed the woman in white, he tried not to look at her face. But a familiar smell filled the car. Medicated oil. An old wool sweater. Charcoal smoke on a rainy morning. His mother's smell. Lamb's hands trembled. He wanted to turn his head. He wanted to look. He wanted to call out, "Mom." Button spoke sharply from behind him. "Do not." Lamb bit down until his jaw hurt. The car passed her. In the mirror, the white figure was still standing there. Lamb forced himself not to look. But tears blurred the road ahead. After another stretch, Tin let out a breath. "We passed it." Lamb asked hoarsely, "Was that my mother?" Tin did not answer. And said, "The person you see is not always one person. Brake time equals 0. 45s/. What do you mean? The pass borrows the shape of whoever can make you weakest." Lamb was silent. So the woman in white could be in. She could be his mother. She could be anyone who had died on the road. Or maybe she was simply his own fear wearing white and standing in the fog. As they climbed higher, the mist thickened again. The radio in the car turned on by itself. Lamb jerked his eyes toward the display. He had not touched it. Old music came through the speakers, thin and crackling. It was a song his mother used to play on Sunday mornings. Lamb reached to turn it off. Tin caught his wrist. "Leave it." After the music faded, a woman's voice emerged. "Lamb." He froze. It was his mother's voice. Weaker than she had sounded in his childhood, closer to the final days, but unmistakably hers. "I knew one day you would drive through this pass on a night full of fog. I told you many times, but you are like your father. You always think you can control the road." Lamb's breath shook. "Mom." The voice continued. "Your father did not die because of a ghost in white. He died because he believed he could not be wrong. Until the last second, he still tried to look back and prove he was right." Tears fell onto the steering wheel. "I am sorry I never told you everything. I was afraid you would hate your father. I was also afraid you would hate this pass. But the truth is, after the accident, many people were saved because of that woman in white. Some saw her and slowed down. Because of that, they avoided overturned trucks, oil on the road, falling rocks, and sharp bends they could not see. His mother's voice broke. I saw her once too. I was bringing you home from the hospital. You were 3 years old. Our car almost hit a truck with no lights beyond a curve. A woman in white stood in the road. The driver braked. Everyone cursed her. A few seconds later, they saw the truck lying sideways behind the bend. Lamb sobbed. Why did you never tell me? Because people like ghost stories, his mother said. Not many people want to hear about a spirit still trying to save them. The radio crackled harder. Her voice grew smaller. Tonight, if you see me, do not stop. Do not get out. Do not ask me to come with you. I am only there to guide you through the last curve. Lamb could barely see the road, and spoke from the back. Hold the wheel. Tin gripped his shoulder. Lamb, look at the road. He took one deep breath. Then he wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Ahead of them appeared a curve narrower than all the others. No warning sign. No road light. No reflective stripe. Only fog as thick as a wall. The boy in the back whispered, the third time. No one said another word. The woman in white stood in the middle of the road. This time, she faced the car. Lamb could see her clearly. It was his mother. Not the mother who had grown thin and weak from illness. Not the mother from the last hospital bed. This was his mother from years ago. Her hair still dark. Her eyes still bright. Wearing the white coat she used to wear whenever she went to Dalat for medical appointments. Break time equals 0. 5s/. She stood in the fog, looking at him, her mouth moving without sound. Lamb could read the shape of the words. Stop. Lamb hit the brake. Tin shouted, no, and cried out, do not brake hard. But it was too late. The tires slipped on the wet road. The car spun sideways. The rear swung toward the edge. Lamb corrected the wheel, but it felt weightless, as if the steering was no longer connected to the tires. The boy screamed. The cake box fell to the floor. Its lid opened. There was no cake inside. Only an old photograph. The photograph showed a young woman in a white AO dye, a little boy, a young conductor, and a driver standing beside a red passenger bus. The driver was Lamb's father. The young conductor was Tin. Lamb's car slid toward the drop. At that moment, the woman in white rushed toward the hood. She did not float. She did not vanish. She ran. Like a mother running toward her child. She placed both hands on the front of the car. Lamb saw her eyes. No fear. No anger. Only desperate pleading. Then he heard her voice inside his head. Let go, my son. He understood. She was not telling him to let go of the steering wheel. She was telling him to let go of her. Let go of his father. Let go of the questions that had held him on this road for 30 years. Let go of the feeling that he had been abandoned. Let go of the anger he carried toward the dead. Let go of the pride that told him experience could carry him through every curve. Lamb released the brake, pressed the clutch, shifted into low gear, held the wheel straight. The car jerked violently, and the front tires found the road again. The rear scraped the guardrail, throwing sparks into the fog. Then, with a force Lamb could never explain, the car pulled away from the edge and returned to the lane. Lamb screamed. He did not know whether it was fear, pain, or the sound of a child calling for his mother. "Mom!" The white figure in front of the car smiled. Then she dissolved into the fog. The car stopped at the top of the pass, near the road leading into Dalat. Streetlights appeared. The distant sound of motorbikes drifted through the night. A small coffee shop was still open. There was still fog, but it was no longer thick enough to swallow the world. The clock on the dashboard changed to 12:18. Only 1 minute had passed. Lamb sat frozen. His hands were still locked around the wheel. His breathing came in broken bursts. After a long time, he turned toward the passenger seat. Tin was gone. The back seat was empty too. No one. No boy. No cake box. Only the faint smell of incense remained in the car. Lamb opened the door and stumbled outside. He looked around. No one. No footprints. No shadows. His phone lit up again. Lamb picked it up with shaking hands. There was no longer a call from Mom. Only a new audio recording. Length, 1 minute and 17 seconds. He pressed play. At first, there was only static. Then his mother's voice came through, perfectly clear. "You are out of the pass now, aren't you?" Lamb broke down immediately. Her voice continued. "Break time equals 0. 35s/. Then that is enough. I only ask you one thing. From now on, when you drive through Prenn in the fog and you see someone standing by the road, do not tell people it was a ghost." A pause. Then her final words. "Tell them someone was still trying to get them home." The recording ended. Lamb stood by the road for a long time. Fine rain settled on his hair. Behind him, Prenn Pass lay still inside the fog, as if nothing had happened at all. The next morning, Lamb took the car to a garage. The mechanic looked at the long scrape along the side and shook his head. "You hit the guardrail?" Lamb nodded. "Probably." The mechanic crouched to check the undercarriage. Then he went quiet. "What is it?" Lamb asked. The mechanic touched the edge of the front bumper. There were 2 dark mud prints on the hood. They looked like hands. One left. One right. Clear against the metal. But what made Lamb's blood run cold was their size. They did not look like a man's hands. They looked like a woman's. And between the two prints, a strip of white fabric had been caught in the seam. Lamb picked it up. Thin. Wet. Cold. Like an old piece of raincoat cloth. The mechanic asked, "Did you hit somebody last night?" Lamb looked at the fabric in his hand. Then he shook his head. No. But when he checked the dash camera, the entire recording from inside the pass was filled with white static. Only one frame was clear. The frame captured the moment his car slid sideways at the final curve. In the image, a woman in white stood in front of the hood, both hands pressed against the car. Fog hid her face. But behind her, along the road edge, there were many other figures. An old man in a knit cap. A young woman in a white AO dye. A little boy holding a cake box. And a man standing at the very back, wearing an old driver's shirt. Lamb enlarged the image. The man looked straight into the camera. His face was covered in faint scratches. But Lamb recognized him. His father. He was not.
That was the story of Prenn Pass, the woman in white, and the curve at Kilometer 7. Some people call it a ghost story. Some drivers call it a warning. But on foggy nights in Dalat, when the road turns black with rain and the pine trees disappear behind the mist, those two things can become the same. If you ever hear another story from a real road, an old hotel, a mountain pass, or a place where people say the dead still appear, remember this. Not every haunting begins with revenge. Sometimes the dead return because the living still need one last chance.